Have you ever felt too strange for this world? Like your mind operates on a different frequency? Maybe it's not just your imagination. Maybe you're a rare intuitive. INFJ or INTJ. Only 1% of people think this way. They see what no one else sees. They feel what no one talks about. But why does this feel more like a burden than a gift? And how can you transform this rare vision into real strength? Today you'll see what's always been there, but no one explained to you. Discover if you're a rare intuitive. The mind that no one understands. Some people live with their head somewhere else, not because they're distracted, but because they see what no one else does. While the world runs on autopilot, these people feel like they're watching everything from the best seats in slow motion, noticing details that escape ordinary eyes. It's as if they have a special filter that reveals what's behind reality. The feeling? Always being somewhat out of place, somewhat ahead, as if they're reading the world's script before opening night. This type of mind isn't satisfied with the superficial. Simple questions like, "How are you?" take on unexpected depth. They notice the pause before the answer, the tension in the shoulders, the wandering gaze, and then, even without trying, they start putting together an invisible puzzle. This can be exhausting, sometimes even lonely, because the rest of the world seems to be on another frequency, one that doesn't pick up on what they feel or see so clearly. And there's no point trying to explain. When they try to put it into words, it sounds like exaggeration, mysticism, or pure invention, but it's not. It's just heightened perception. Many of these people end up staying quiet, thinking they're wrong or that they feel too much. But what if this way of thinking is actually a sign? A clue to something much deeper and rarer? What if someone more than a century ago had already noticed this same pattern? Carl Jung's discovery. While many tried to classify human behavior with simple labels, Carl Jung saw beyond. He believed there was something deeper guiding our actions, invisible forces, archetypes, symbols. It wasn't just psychology, it was almost alchemy of the soul. Jung realized that some people didn't live on the surface of life. They lived between the lines where ordinary eyes can't reach. And it was in this mysterious territory that he began to identify a rare type of mind. These people don't function based on cold facts and concrete evidence. They feel what's behind them, as if they had an emotional and symbolic radar that decodes hidden meanings in small things. Jung called this introverted intuition, a powerful psychic function that reveals itself not with noise, but with silence. This function isn't interested in what is happening, but in why and what for. It's as if the brain becomes a scanner of the invisible. And here's the most intriguing point. Jung didn't see this as a flaw, but as a specific configuration of the soul. Something rare, yes, but incredibly valuable. A lens to see realities that most ignore. So if you've ever felt like someone who picks up too much, understands too much, notices too much, maybe you're not exaggerating. Maybe, as Jung believed, your mind is tuned to another layer of reality. But who are these people today? INFJ and INTJ, the rarest types. Among the 16 MBTI types, two stand out as enigmatic pieces on a board that few know how to play: INFJ and ENTJ. These four letters aren't just a code, they're maps of mental functioning. The I stands for introverted, energy focused on the inner world. The N indicates intuition, perception beyond the obvious. F is feeling, decision-making based on human value. And T is thinking, impersonal logic. Finally, the J shows a more structured style that seeks order, even in chaos. Together, these letters form rare types that don't just think differently, but feel and see the world through lenses almost no one else has. These two types share something even rarer: a dominant function called introverted intuition. This is like having an internal radar that picks up patterns, symbols, and connections no one else sees. While most react to what's before their eyes, INFJs and INTJs react to what they sense. even if they can't explain how they know. It's as if they see the invisible skeleton of situations. They're not satisfied with the superficial. They want to go to the bone of things. But what does this create in practice? An INFJ can sense what someone is feeling, even before that person notices it themselves. An INTJ can predict a system failure before it even shows warning signs. And when this ability isn't understood, it might seem like they're spaced out. But they're not. They're simply connected to a logic that escapes ordinary eyes. And when this power is refined, the world around them begins to transform. The power of introverted intuition. A mind guided by introverted intuition doesn't accept things as they appear to be. It wants to understand what's behind, what originated each detail, what hidden structure sustains reality. It's not about finding something pretty or finding something interesting. It's a visceral need. When everyone else is comfortable with the superficial explanation, this type of person is still digging through layers, and this inevitably creates distance, because those who live so deeply end up on the margins of what's shallow. This way of thinking manifests early. Children with this dominant function often ask questions that make adults uncomfortable. Why do people lie if they say lying is bad? Or, if God is love, why is there war? Questions that disturb because they go beyond what's socially convenient. In adult life, this mind needs space and silence to function. Reading books like The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle or The Celestine Prophecy by James Redfield can feed this depth with more meaning. But this depth comes at a price. Few people understand this type of internal functioning. Friends think the person is distant, quiet, or overthinking. But inside, the brain is racing, connecting ideas, testing hypotheses, building theories about what's to come. And maybe that's exactly why many introverted intuitives prefer solitude. But does this introspection operate the same way in all intuitives? Or are there hidden nuances between each type? The difference between INFJ and INTJ. Although they share the same dominant function, INFJ and INTJ walk very different paths. The INFJ feels the world. It's as if they carry an always active emotional tuner, picking up the pain, desire, fear, and hope of those nearby. Even if no one says anything, they notice. They can enter a room and know in seconds who's sad, who's pretending, and who's about to explode. It's empathy at its most refined level, and sometimes it's heavy, because feeling too much also hurts. The INTJ, on the other hand, isn't moved by others' emotions. They're moved by strategic vision. Their introverted intuition operates like an architect's mind, anticipating failures, testing scenarios, predicting outcomes. While others live improvising, they're already 3 steps ahead. You could say the INFJ is the emotional visionary and the INTJ the strategist of the invisible. Both see what no one else sees. The difference lies in how they use it. One transforms the world's pain into purpose. The other transforms hidden patterns into plans. And that's where many people get confused, because on the outside, both may seem introspective, reserved, even difficult to read. But inside, they experience completely different mental storms. The INFJ is trying to save the world from within. The INTJ is trying to understand how the world works and rebuild it. And when these two forces manifest in real life, the results can be extraordinary, but also misunderstood. And this leads us to an inevitable question. How do they see the world around them? 2 visions of the world. The INFJ and INTJ don't just live in different realities from the people around them, they live in different realities from each other. For the INFJ, the world is a vast emotional field. Every gesture, every word, every absence carries symbolic weight. They see connections between feelings and actions that no one notices. Have you ever entered a room and have felt tension in the air before anyone spoke? This is common for them. Their vision of the world is sensitive, almost poetic, full of hidden meanings waiting to be revealed. The INTJ, however, sees the world as a vast, logical system. Everything to them is a gear, and if a piece is out of place, they notice and are already imagining how to fix it. It's as if they see life as a constantly moving chessboard. Nothing is random. Nothing is pointless. Even silence can be a strategic move. And while the INFJ dives into human emotions, the INTJ looks for patterns to understand and predict human behavior. One feels the chaos, the other deciphers the code. But there's something that unites them. Both are seeking coherence. Both want purpose, meaning, truth. They can't stand futility. They can't stand empty labels. And because of this, they live as observers. Sometimes they're the only ones who see the contradiction behind a trend or the emptiness of a pretty speech. And when you start seeing the world with these eyes, everything changes, including how you feel within it. But does all this depth come without consequences? The price of depth, being deep in a world that values shallowness, is like speaking a forgotten language. INFJs and ENTJs feel this every day. It's not that they choose to isolate themselves, it's that often they have no one to connect with. While most are focused on the now, they're already reflecting on what comes next. They observe more than they speak, and this, in others' eyes, can seem like coldness, arrogance, or disinterest. But in truth, it's just strategic silence, one that listens, analyzes, and only then acts. Imagine being in an environment where everything revolves around appearances, competition, and urgency. For a deep intuitive, this is exhausting. They need depth as others need air. That's why they often prefer to be alone rather than force themselves into superficial interactions. And when they try to explain themselves, they're misunderstood. Like when someone says, "Wow, you're really in your own world," without understanding that inside. There's an entire universe in emotion, a universe that few, almost no one, knows how to access. And this feeling of being out of place doesn't just come from lack of connection. It comes from the sensation of not belonging. It's like being a hexagonal piece trying to fit in a game of circular shapes. INFJs and INTJs know this from an early age. They feel they see the world differently, but they can't turn off this perspective. So they continue in silence, waiting for the moment when everything makes sense. But what if that moment doesn't come from outside? What if the true home is inside their own mind? Living in the internal world, what drives INFJs and INTJs isn't what happens outside, it's what echoes within. While the world buzzes with notifications, noise, and distractions, they walk inward. The decision they make, the path they choose, the idea they pursue, everything is born in the silence of introspection. It's as if they live with an invisible compass pointing north, even when everyone around seems lost. They don't follow the crowd, they follow something deeper. This intense inner life gives rise to constant reflections. An INFJ can spend hours trying to understand the behavior of someone they barely know, because they sensed a contradiction in their look. An INTJ, in turn, can spend weeks planning an idea that they'll only share when it's fully developed. They're not the type to think out loud, they think deeply. And because of this, they often surprise others with unexpected insights, calculated decisions, or even a phrase that seems to have been taken from an ancient book. But living this way also has its costs. After all, while most are busy with the external, these two are always questioning, rethinking, refining. The result? A constant feeling that there's something to be done, something to be understood, something to be transformed. And this can become a sophisticated loneliness, difficult to explain. But what happens when this loneliness turns into pain? That silent pain of not feeling like you belong anywhere? The pain of not belonging, few pains are as silent as that of not fitting in. Not for lack of trying, but because the mold simply was never made for you. INFJs and INTJs carry the sensation like a secret, camouflaged between polite smiles, forced social participations, and calculated silences. They try at times to adapt, but deep down, they know there's something that distances them, as if they were watching life from the outside, even while being at the center of the scene. And the most curious thing is that they're often admired. They're seen as intelligent, mysterious, even inspiring, but no one sees the effort it takes to pretend naturalness in environments that drain their energy. While others converse on impulse, they weigh each word. While many feel at home amid the hustle and bustle, they dream of a place where they can be just themselves, without filters, without masks, without having to reduce their complexity to fit in a space that was never theirs. But this pain, as intense as it might be, carries a clue that perhaps, just perhaps, this feeling of not belonging is a reminder that these people aren't here to follow the flow. They are here to create a new one. And when they stop trying to fit in, something changes. It's the beginning of a turning point. But does this turning point happen on its own, or is there a process that leads to this rediscovery of who you truly are? The process of individuation. Carl Jung said that the true journey of a human being begins when they stop trying to be what others expect and start being who they really are. This process has a name: individuation. For INFJs and INTJs, it's not a philosophical luxury, it's a vital necessity. Because living trying to fit into others' molds is like slowly suffocating, individuation begins when you look inside and say, "This is me," even if the world doesn't understand, even if it hurts. It's on this journey that the rare intuitive stops being a distant observer and becomes a conscious protagonist. They begin to realize that their sensitivity isn't weakness, it's radar, that their logic isn't coldness, it's precision. It's when they integrate what they've always been with what the world needs. The INFJ begins to express themselves more clearly, to trust their empathy as a gift and not a curse. The INTJ learns to lead without hardening, to plan with humanity. They stop hiding. But this process doesn't happen in a click. It comes in layers. It comes in the right books, the right conversations, the difficult decisions. It comes when you start saying no to what drains you and yes to what feeds you from within. And each small step on this path reveals another piece of who you truly are. But when this piece fits, what gets built from there? What happens when the invisible begins to take shape? The gift of shaping the invisible. Few realize it, but INFJs and INTJs possess a rare ability, shaping the invisible. While the world focuses on what can be touched, they work with what can only be felt. The INFJ uses words as if they were scalpels, cutting through layers of pain, opening spaces for healing, awakening insights with a simple phrase. The INTJ, meanwhile, operates like an architect of the intangible, anticipating failures, visualizing structures, building solutions before problems appear. This isn't magic, it's refined intuition put into practice. This gift, however, only flourishes when they trust their own perception, when they stop doubting what they feel and start acting based on what they know, even without visible proof. An INFJ, for example, can transform someone's pain with advice that seems read from the soul. An INTJ can create a system so effective that it solves problems others didn't even know existed. They're like sculptors of the invisible, shaping ideas, intentions, patterns, and visions that others cannot yet see. And when they realize the impact of this, something changes. They understand that they didn't come to the world just to observe. They came to influence, to leave marks where no one thought to look, to open paths where everyone saw walls. But this influence doesn't start on the outside. It begins with a simple question. What if what you feel is right? What if the answer you've been looking for has been with you all along? The answer is inside you. Truths don't shout, they whisper, and only the attentive hear them. If throughout this journey something inside you moved, It wasn't by chance. That strange feeling of familiarity, that this is exactly how I feel, that's not a coincidence. It's your unconscious knocking on the door of consciousness. If you saw pieces of yourself in each trait, in each detail, perhaps you're not discovering something new. Perhaps you're just remembering who you've always been. Many people spend their lives looking for signs on the outside, but the rare intuitives, INFJs and INTJs, know that the strongest signs come from within. It's not a loud voice. It's a calm, almost stubborn conviction that insists on saying, "You're not like the others, and that's okay." The problem is that sometimes this voice is muffled by obligations, fears, others' opinions, but it stays there, waiting for the right moment. And maybe, just maybe, that moment is now. So the final question isn't, am I a rare intuitive? The question is, am I willing to accept this part of myself? Because once you accept it, there's no going back. You begin to see clearly, act with purpose, and shape a life that makes sense with what exists inside, not outside. Now, what if this is just the beginning of an even greater journey? If everything you've heard here stirred something inside you, don't ignore it. This isn't just curiosity, it's a calling. The truth is that understanding who you really are is the first step to leaving behind that feeling of displacement and finally taking your place in the world. You're not here to fit in, you're here to see what no one else sees, and use that to transform your reality. So the question is, what will you do with everything you discovered today? Will you continue trying to mold yourself to what's expected of you? Or will you start, right now, building a life aligned with what makes sense for your unique mind? Share in the comments. Which part of the video did you identify with most? At what moment did you think, this is me? I'll read everything. I want to know your journey. And who knows, maybe your story will help someone else understand themselves too. If this video resonated with you, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Because here we'll continue unraveling the mind of those who see the world through different eyes. And if you want to keep diving into this universe, I've already chosen the next video for you. It's right here on the screen. See you there.